Hello, my name is Chris Waters. I am the co-chair of the Education Committee and Research Committee for the Delaware Workforce Council. Today we have with us Karen Holler, who is the President and CEO of Epic Careering. I want to say this, that I have known her for a long time, and she has almost 20 years of career coaching, as well as resume writing, as well as social media, and as well as expertise in LinkedIn, as well as all around, job searching. So we have her here today to talk about how to do job searching, and we'll go over other subjects as well as we continue with the series. But today we'll talk about job searching. So how are you doing today, Karen?
So far, so good. Thanks for asking, Chris. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, congratulations. We're very happy to have you, and we're very happy to have you share your expertise with with our group and anyone that finds this information very useful. So the first question, as always, when we're job searching, that we always want to ask is, what is the first thing a person should do when they start doing job searching?
It might sound maybe counterintuitive, but even in this economy, you should make a wish list. You should really think about where you want to be and what you want to do, of course, and make a list of criteria. I would say 25 to 50 items deep. Think about and just suspend reality for a minute. Like you can always bring reality into the picture, but really let your imagination go. The reason why that's important is because your brain gets motivated by things that are real or imagined that are exciting. So keep that picture in your mind. Think about how great it could be on the other end of actually getting a job, and think about what kind of commute you want. Think about the kind of boss and the relationship that you have with your boss, how you want him to hold you accountable, what kind of reporting structure you have there, who is your boss, and your ideal day. Like, what are you doing in your day? What time are you getting up? What time are you getting to work? What time, when you are at work, what are the things that are consuming most of your day? What are the other things you get to do with your day? How do you interact with your team? What kind of team do you have? What kind of social interactions are there in your team? What kind of culture do you want? What is the office environment that you'll thrive in? What are the contributions that you want to make towards this company's mission that are really important to you? And furthermore, what are the missions that a company might have that would really excite you to contribute to? Social structures, the ways you want to grow and develop, the ultimate, end goal. You can always change your mind. You don't even know what the careers are going to be, what they're going to look like in 10, 20 years, but have some kind of end goal. Like, you'd love to be able to grow and develop in this way. Perks, obviously, benefits, obviously, salary, obviously. Again, you can suspend reality for a moment. And if the salary that you want ultimately isn't available to you right now, it's okay to say the next step up, right? The next step towards that. And what kind of affiliations you want your company to have? What kind of nonprofit organizations or community involvement do you want them to have? That actually gives you a really great starting place for the next step, which is identifying target companies that will be able to fulfill some of that list. Like, if you know that this particular cause is important to you, you can then take a look at the events of that cause and what kind of organizations sponsor that cause. And then you have a great list of companies that align with that.
Mm-hmm. So I guess my next question is more importantly, I think a lot of people will be actually either changing careers or actually, transforming the skills or transmuting the skills they have to another position. So someone who might be in accounting might have to go to finance, or might go to business strategies, that kind of thing. What work should they be pursuing in that sense? Where is it more in the idea where someone should stay in something they already known and have done forever, or is it more in a sense where someone can change their skills and change their resume and change their narrative to go into another field or to another organization?
I think a lot of people will tend towards staying in something that's parallel to what they're doing now, believing that might be their most viable search. And that may or may not be true, because if you're in a field right now that's suffering, then you'll need to reinvent yourself a little bit and pivot in your career. And that's another list-making activity. Take an inventory of all of your passions, of all the things that you could do every day, talk about for hours, do without noticing the time is passing. Also, make another list of your talents and your skills and experiences that can be valuable, and then make another list of who might need that and be willing to pay for it. So, you know, even if it's not necessarily something you understand to be a job title or a job function, if a company needs that, then they're willing to pay for it. And even if they want that, then they're willing to pay for it if it aligns with what they're up to as an organization, their initiatives, and then see where they intersect. You know, so see where the things that you have a passion about, things that you have skills and talents that contribute to, and what they're willing to pay for. There are also 2 resources that I would take a look at. Well, 3 really. onet.org, that's actually onetonline.org, has a great database of job descriptions and potential careers that you can look into. It gives you some insight as to how to get started, what kind of training you might need, what some basic qualifications are. So if you have to fill any skill gaps, that can be something that you can work towards. I know some states have some programs that can actually compensate you for training you might need to get in order for your career. I don't know about Delaware, maybe you could speak to that. But also, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics has something called an Occupational Outlook Handbook. So if you go to bls.gov, which is the Bureau of Labor and Statistics website, and you look in the search bar for OOH, it will bring, it's like a catalog. It's another catalog. It'll show you what the growth prospects are. It'll show you what the average salary is. And keep in mind that that's a national salary, so it will vary pretty widely actually based on where you are. And it will also tell you what the basic education requirements and skills and training are, and what the future of that is. So if you're in an industry right now that's suffering from COVID, you don't want to necessarily jump into another career that's shrinking, right? It's not a good strategy. So it's input that you can take into consideration. The other place is LinkedIn. You know, once you make that inventory, that criteria list, and think about what you want to do every day, go on LinkedIn and try to identify people who've been there, who are doing that right now, and see what their career paths have been, what kind of experience they've done. Maybe even try reaching out to them and say, hey, you're in a job that I think I'd really love to get into. Tell me how you got there. And then you automatically invest other people in your career, and you're also automatically growing your network and potentially engaging sponsors for you know, the job that you want, or people who could be mentors to you.
So it's interesting. You mentioned LinkedIn, which is now, you know, pretty much the standard in, you know, in networking and job searching, and a very important tool in that. So for anybody that hasn't done their LinkedIn page for a long time, or hasn't, you know, even been on LinkedIn, what would you recommend as an effective LinkedIn page? What's the standardization when you work with a client or work with someone that you want to see on their LinkedIn page after you're done working with them?
LinkedIn will tell you if your profile is not 100% complete. And if it's not 100% complete, then you are probably not showing up in a lot of search results, which is something you do definitely want to be found. It would make your job search a lot easier if people could find you and reach out to you if you have what they need. So making it complete requires you to complete your headline, which is that 120 character thing that goes next to your name on your profile. That's what shows up in search results. That actually defaults to your most recent position. So it's a highly strategic move to customize that and put in first the role or the title that you want to be found for, because that shows up when in a search, and not all the characters do. And then you want to put in some tidbits about things that make you unique. You know, usually it's like a verb outcome type of thing, creates positive outcomes, converts customers, whatever it happens to be. And then if you have any particular certifications or unique experiences, you can try to fit that in that 120 character headline as well. Your photo is required, and it is recommended that it's actually a photo of you, and that it's actually a professional photo of you, and that you're smiling and seem approachable. This is, you know, old resumes with profile pictures wouldn't have necessarily cut the mustard, but now we want to know. We want to know who we're working with. You know, it's a digital world, but that doesn't mean we're faceless, right? So having a photo, there's an about section. It gives you 2,500 characters. You want to put in there, number one, a hook. A hook can be something that's like stating your mission, or asking a compelling question, or starting out a really compelling story. It's kind of like that first page of a book, because you want people to read the whole book. You need to hook them. And when they go to your profile, they can only see 300 characters or 200 based on where you have a paragraph break. You want them to be able to be so compelled that they click read more, and then they read more. And that's where you can talk about problems you solve, the passion that you have for your work. Let your personality come through. Best practices nowadays are to be first person, because we're moving from ivory tower to approachable and accessible. Include keywords. Keywords are something you can identify by pulling in a whole bunch of job descriptions that are desirable to you into a word cloud. So there are word cloud tools. There's a bunch of them online. Usually they just require you to copy and paste things into one big text field. And then it creates kind of a picture of all these words, and the size of the word represents the frequency of that word. And then you'll know that these are keywords employers are using. They're keywords you should be putting in your profile. Put them in context, in the context of a story as much as possible, but also create a strengths list to include any additional keywords that you might not be able to use in the context. Also, your basic experience and your volunteerism, projects you've worked on. You can tag co-creators, which gives you extra visibility. Recommendations, there's a tool in there to request recommendations. Definitely use that, because they are very powerful. They do have a lot of sway and influence. I would say also, if you have any credentials, certifications, put in your education, and then there's a skills list. You need to pin the top 3 skills that you want to be identified for. So there is a way to prioritize them. If you have Microsoft Office as one of your top 3 skills, you probably should replace that with something, unless you're like the Microsoft guru of the world. But otherwise, make sure that you're leveraging those tools, because you will get endorsed more often for the things that you prioritize as your top 3 skills.
So it's kind of interesting that you mentioned the idea of connecting earlier. So a lot of us have, if you went to college, you have your alma mater. If you're part of a group, you have your group settings. If you're in hobbies and so forth and so on. Does LinkedIn allow you to connect to those organizations quicker and faster now, or is it more of a sense where I have to go out and actually do it physically? Still do it physically? Is it better to do it over LinkedIn, or is it still better to do it in a real world, or is a combination of both is something that I should be, or someone should be looking for?
Professional organizations individually will decide whether LinkedIn is going to be a platform that they leverage, and the members of that professional organization are going to decide whether they're going to leverage that. So some professional organizations use LinkedIn as their primary platform. Some alumni organizations use LinkedIn as their primary platform, and LinkedIn does have a very powerful alumni search tool that'll show you the companies and geographies that alumni are at right now, which might give you more ideas for target companies you might want to pursue and people you can contact. But it's really highly dependent on the organization itself. LinkedIn used to show you how active a group was, how many discussions there were per day, and they took that away. So now you just kind of have to join. You're allowed to join up to 100 groups and test out what the interaction is. Some groups are really great at interacting, and some will offer you even training and opportunities, and they'll keep you aware of events and things like that using LinkedIn. And some groups wind up just being places people dump their blogs. So it's highly dependent.
Okay, so in that sense, where you talked about outreaching to other people, in this case, we're outreaching to strangers, like people that we have, we may have went to the same university, or we have a friend of a friend that is connection with, and I want to know more about the industry. What is the protocol in going out and making contact with that person? Is it more of a sense where I have to be more professional? I have to, you talk about the idea of using I and being a lot more, I want to see first person. In that sense, when I'm reaching out to someone a friend of a friend, is it better to get a recommendation from that person, or is it better to do almost in a way of doing cold emailing or cold contacting, of just sending out a reference and saying, I know you through this person. Is it possible that you have 5 minutes to talk or 10 minutes to talk about your career? And how successful is that interaction?
So even if somebody has a presence on LinkedIn, you'll find that not many people use LinkedIn in the flow of their day. And that will determine whether LinkedIn is a platform that you should leverage optimally to reach that person. If you know this person that's connected to that person, then use the phone. You can call or text that person and say, hey, I noticed you're connected to XYZ. I'd love an introduction. Maybe they'll have their direct email and do it that way. If you see that somebody's not very active on LinkedIn, they don't have a highly populated profile, they don't have they're not updating their status, they may not get or find your invitation to connect for a while. So there are other ways that you can get around that. LinkedIn is great for finding people, but it's not always great for connecting with people. If you see that somebody is active on LinkedIn and they're connected to you through somebody else, I rarely see requests for introductions these days. And I think that it's probably easier to forward that person's profile to the person you know and say, hey, I saw this person. Be direct, be forthright, let them understand, first of all, that you're not just looking for a favor and asking for a job, but you have something valuable to give them. You're going to solve a problem. You're going to contribute to their initiative, their mission. Make that clear. That entices them and inspires them to want to act on your behalf and say, oh yeah, I should make that connection. And ask them, if you know this person, what's the best way to reach them? Can you broker a phone call, or is there a calendar link I can get to? Can we all, not nowadays as much, but can we all meet up for something along those lines? So LinkedIn, if you don't get responses to LinkedIn, do not take it personally, because if they may or may not be on LinkedIn every day.
Now, would you actually use LinkedIn to reach out to people that maybe have fallen, you haven't talked to in 10 years or 5 years? We always have connections that, we had a job, we had an old boss, and, we leave the job, but the relationship is turned cold. Or maybe the relationship is, maybe a relationship has gone from like, 1 email a month down to 2 emails a month, or like 2 emails a year. How would you talk about reconstituting that contact with someone? Is LinkedIn, or is it just the way you said, just email and a personal ask or personal outreach?
If you're not connected to them on LinkedIn or any other social media, definitely invite them to connect. That's a great way to kind of observe them and see what's going on with them, so that when you do reach out to them, you can say, hey, I noticed this is going on for you. And then you have some platform which you can build your rapport around, renew your rapport around, and that's really the best approach, is to say, hey, I noticed you're doing this now. I'd love to know more about that, and just make sure that you're not coming across as, I'm looking for a job now, so I want to reconnect. There's something you can do to help me now, so let's connect. It's networking is at its best, a way to enrich your life and enrich other people's lives. And as long as you approach it that way, and not necessarily expect results from that instantly from the other person, it can happen. But it's really more about just rekindling that. And then I hope that when you land, you keep those fires warmer, and keeping that takes some organization. It takes some keeping track of the people that you know, and being proactive in your efforts to keep in touch. But definitely make it all about asking questions, asking what they're up to, asking what they need. It'll naturally, convert into them asking you what you're up to and what you need. But networking is really a way to nurture your garden, so to speak. So if you approach it that way, it doesn't feel as intrusive. And if the contact has gone cold, then it's really commonplace. It's common practice to see somebody online you haven't talked to in 10 years and reconnect. It's completely acceptable, even quite normal.
So let's talk about networking and network building. We're in an age in which people can, before you go to a conference or you go to an event or you go to an alumni meeting, now you're in the age where, we even as we know each other personally, but even this Zoom video, is a prime example of how, we connect, or how we reach out, or how we got information. So how would you recommend someone who may not have a network, or building a network from scratch, or, we talked about earlier, someone who might be going into a new industry or a new field? How would you recommend they do outreach now in an age of, of Zoom meetings and online, chats and phone calls, instead of, that overall, I can go to a conference and meet 1,500 people at once. Now I'm down to meeting, one person at a time or 2 people at a time. Is a little bit more patience that has to be involved in, and not more tact that has to be involved in? What does that look like now?
It's still pretty hybrid. I mean, it doesn't look like necessarily a lot of in-person interaction, but one-to-one interaction plus one-to-many interactions. So the first thing I would do if I'm looking to expand my network would be to map out all the different realms of my life. So I would map out, so here's my professional realm, right? Here are where I would find coworkers, old bosses, vendors, customers, clients, anybody that I might have interacted with in any of my professional interactions. And then there'd be, the professional organizations and people that I might have known, even things that have gone cold, like I said. But, if there are things that if there's an industry especially that you want to get into, that's where you would do some research, find out what professional organizations are associated with that industry or that profession, and map those out as well. Then personal. So the thing about LinkedIn is that while it is a professional platform, statistics are showing that it's really going to be not your immediate circle, but it's going to be their circles that produce the most job leads for you. So you definitely want to include your personal network on LinkedIn. So you really think about neighbors, you want to think about family, you want to think about people who are associated with your hobbies and interests. It's kind of like that song, "Who are the people in your neighborhood?" Every time you leave your house, which isn't often for many people these days, but the hobbies that you have, the fitness interests, the people that share these common interests with you, make a list of those people as well. And then I would make a goal to connect with 25, send 25 to 50 invitations maybe each week. And there's a tool that can help you automate that, which is called Lead Connect. But that's really more for people who you don't know or people you're already connected to on LinkedIn. If there's no way to really search for people who you know already. But if you start there and then start expanding out from there, and then go to their networks, if they have a public, now that you're connected with them, if they can show you who their connections are, then go through who they know. There's bound to be somebody or some company that's going to spark an interest in you that will make you want to reach out, and also not just connect and leave it there, but that's where the hybrid part comes in. Once you connect with somebody online, the point is to convert that online relationship into something that's offline, and offline still is half online now. So offline would have meant have lunch, have coffee, right? But now it looks like telecoffee. It looks like let's have a Zoom meeting. You can even do just like, hey, do you want to play Cards Against Humanity for the night, or just have a happy hour, invite your friends and do a virtual happy hour. And you can play games or you can just catch up, whatever it happens to be. But initiating that, being the person that's bringing people together is a really great way to, number one, expand your network and convert these offline relationships to online relationships, but also to, it's like self-care. It's staying connected. We all want to feel that sense of connection, and it's much harder these days. So utilizing the tools that are available right now, even just the phone, just asking people to catch up on the phone 15, 20 minutes. You can get a lot done in 15, 20 minutes. And really what you want to get done in a 15, 20-minute phone call is find out what's going on for them. What are their challenges? What kind of resources or introductions do they need? And that's actually a great way to send your LinkedIn invitation. Like, hey, what are you up to? What kind of introductions would move you further faster towards your goals right now?
I know, I think Adam Grant said it best. He said, in one of his books, Give and Take, he said, secondary ties provide more resources than primary ties, because with primary ties, they experience you directly, versus secondary ties who are experiencing you through a problem or problem solving scope. So they look at it totally different, and the resources they bring are totally different than someone who is primary, because they know your problems and they're not, they don't look at it from a new viewpoint. They look at it from the same viewpoint they did while you were going through that problem. Yep. So that's always interesting. So we talked about, LinkedIn, we talked about building a network, we talked about, the basic resources. What would be an effective and efficient job search? What does that look like? And how much time would you give? We're in a different age now, or, something that might take 3 months now takes a year, or sometimes 2 years. Depending on what you're doing. What would you consider at this point an effective and efficient job search for someone who is, just now getting back into the idea of doing job searches and doing job applying as well?
Well, what doesn't get scheduled often doesn't get done. So leverage, I don't care if you use a physical planner or your phone calendar, but definitely plan your week ahead. That's the admin. That's one of the 5 major categories of activities in your job search is admin, just keeping yourself organized. keeping notes on who you talk to and what they're up to and the personal things that you learn about them and where things are left and what you're going to do to help them out. So there's the admin part of it. And you want to schedule that every week. You can do it, Friday for the end of the week, set up your next week. A lot of people use Sunday for that, or Saturday morning for that, or some people just use Monday for that. Whatever it happens to be, just make sure that you have time actually blocked out on your calendar to block out all the rest of the things that you need to do. And blocking time is the best, like batching time. So you do all of your phone calls or all of your LinkedIn outreach all at once. You would do all of your responding to the incoming LinkedIn messages potentially all at once. You would do all of your research potentially in a chunk of time, or several chunks of time. But pay attention to where your energy is during the week. Keep the things that require the most energy aligned with when you have the most energy. So if you are somebody who gets a burst of energy in the afternoon, maybe schedule the time that you're going to need to take some massive, bold action by reaching out directly to potential supervisors and hiring managers or people in your target companies. Chunk that out and put it on your calendar, and you'll find that even though things might be out of your comfort zone, once you sit down and do a couple of them, you'll find the momentum really, really going for you. And that is high impact activity. And you definitely want to prioritize that first. Do the proactive outreach. Schedule that first. You don't have to do it first, but definitely schedule it first. That's the priority. And then you want to, that's the third activity, but the other one is research. So again, these are the 5 activities. It's admin, research, massive action, network nurturing, and self-care. Those are the 5 things that you want to block out on your calendar each week. Then you also have to think about the job search workflow, which looks like identifying a target company, identifying a potential sponsor for that company or opportunity. If that doesn't work out, then you want to write a very targeted, highly specific cover letter. And then if that doesn't work out, then you can see if there are any recruiters who might be filling that. Recruiters are great resources, especially if you're going from one job to a similar job. It can be challenging to have a recruiter present you if you're changing jobs, changing industries, or if you're going for a stretch position, unless that company specifically wants, and a lot of good companies do, somebody to level up into that position, or they have the resources to develop and train somebody into that upper level position. But don't be discouraged if recruiters aren't completely helpful for you. Their clients are the companies looking for talent. And then the last resort is applying online. So that's low impact activity that you should prioritize last and chunk out a 5% or less of your time towards that. What you'll find if you look at a calendar is that most of your time is going to be going towards LinkedIn, outreach, any kind of outreach, professional organizations, and research. Those are the things that are going to consume most of your time.
So it's interesting that, and we've been taught, and especially, people that have been, job searching, that, you go on Career Builder, you go on Indeed, and you pull, you type in what the job you're looking for, and you apply and apply, and whatever hopefully someone gets back to you. So, it kind of goes against counterintuitively what people have been taught. Like, there's what you know and what you're taught and what you actually do. Sometimes that, applying online is, maybe not be the best way of doing it, but you've been taught that way. And because you've been taught that way is what you do. So in your viewpoint, doing that on a smaller scale would be best, in your opinion, and why is that?
There are multiple reasons. If you've been on the hiring side ever, and I used to be a recruiter, then you can see that you can get so many applicants for one job. And even if your resume is keyword optimized, it's no guarantee that you're going to show up in those results. And that's really the main reason, is because the chance of you getting a job through an online application is like 7%. And that depends on your field. It varies. A lot of consultants, are, especially IT consultants, if they're not at the management or leadership level, find it really easy, to just apply online and get the job, because they have a specialized niche and they can find it easy. So That's not always the case, but the other reason is that a lot of companies have employee referral bonus programs. And if you apply online, you can preclude anybody that you might know who would recommend you for that job from getting sometimes over $1,000 for referring you. So it's kind of like you want to give people the chance to bring you in, first. Also, it makes you more competitive in a database of, hundreds to thousands of applicants for each job. Not knowing if you're going to actually, even if your application is even going to be seen. And then once you are seen, you're being compared to all these other people. But when somebody else is able to recommend you for that job, number one, that person might have a vested interest in you coming in and knowing that you're going to deliver, or that you're going to have a higher investment in making sure that you make them look good. There's also the fact that it can create this cycle of disappointment to spend most of your time sending out applications that you hear nothing from, or automated, sorry, we filled this job, or you're overqualified, just like all those blanket things. And that experience can, number one, make it seem as though what you want isn't viable, or that you aren't viable. And that's a dangerous situation to be in, because that's demotivating, number one. How hard is it to motivate yourself to apply to 100 jobs every day and then hear very little back? That's negative reinforcement, right? So you're going to be demotivated then to do that. But when you can get somebody to introduce you to a hiring manager, even if there's no job posted, and have that turn into a meeting, that's knowing you can make something happen. That is a completely different experience. You have a completely different perception of your whole career, actually, when you know that you can make something happen and not just sit back and have to wait passively for somebody to notice you and say that you're good enough to come in for an interview. So a lot of different reasons, actually.
Mm-hmm. So I guess, lastly, you asked, my last question on my mind and on my list is that, we talked about time frame. We talked about how do I keep the momentum in job search going? This is going to be, you hopefully is going to be very short, turnaround, but there, always have to plan for a long turnaround. How do you keep, the momentum going? How do is it just, the idea of, the positive mental attitude, the idea of always planning, the idea of seeing, I want to say, seeing results outside of job searching, and living a more fuller, life, and job searching is part of that. How do you keep the momentum going for someone who is expecting a longer search than they want, in some cases?
So as I was saying, the high impact activities are often out of your comfort zone, but you'll get more comfortable over time doing them. And when you do, you don't need hardly as much of the time in your job search. And you'll have more time then for meetings and Zooms and phone calls and, connecting, attending online webinars and all the other things that come along with that. So over time, if you can create habits and be consistent around doing some of the high impact things, you don't need to do and invest your time in the low impact things, and you won't have time to do the low impact things because you'll be so busy with meetings and introductions and interviews and ultimately offers. So that's really the key. It's if you're going online, it's a quantity game. If you're applying online, it's a quantity game. If you're taking this approach, it's a quality game. And you also, won't be entertaining opportunities that really wind up not being a great fit for you. It's a completely different experience to have 4 to 5 potential really great opportunities that you are excited about, where you really feel like you could thrive and they're going to provide you with the career growth that you want, and they're excited about you. And any one of them could end up in an offer any day now, from having that experience of, I'm going to send out 100 applications every day. And the ones that come back, I'm gonna take the interview, even if it doesn't look like a fit, because it's here in front of me, and maybe it will lead to something better down the line. It can, but the proactive approach is much more, it takes a little bit more courage to get into it because you're stepping out there. The other thing is your messaging. Like I was saying, how you really want to present yourself as a solution to a problem or somebody that can contribute, to initiatives and missions. And that's really key. When you have that messaging down, then you can turn one conversation into several leads. And that's, you're training your network how to be lead generation armies for you. And then you don't have to invest much time. It's like, this chain reaction of things. You have one person introduce you to two other people introduce you to three other people. It creates momentum very quickly. And if something happens to kill your momentum, you get sick, somebody gets sick, you have to take care of them. Knowing that you can just go back to those high impact activities and regenerate that momentum is another key to your mood, your positivity, your confidence. Again, a whole different experience in job searching.
Very, very, very good. Well, thank you, Karen, for your time. It is a pleasure as always. I always learn something new when talking to you, and I'm sure that when we post this in our comments, I'm sure everyone that views this video will almost definitely learn something new, a new tactic and new skills and new strategy about job searching. So any final thoughts before we sign off?
Probably. I just want people to know that even though it's a shrunken economy right now, that it's not necessarily reflective of your chances of finding something that's really great.
Very good. And on that note, we'll sign off. Thank you again, Karen. Epic Karen Poehler, President and CEO. Chris Waters from the Delaware Workforce Women's Council. And I hope you learned something, and I hope you have a wonderful day.